Hello, I'm Judy Twigg, a professor in VCU's political science program. My work deals with health policy and global health issues. I'll be saying a few words here about the coronavirus pandemic as an issue in the 2020 presidential election campaign in the United States. Obviously, COVID-19 has had an enormous impact on all our lives. It has been, and it will continue to be, a central, controversial issue in this election. To some degree, this presidential election will be a referendum on President Donald Trump's effectiveness or his perceived effectiveness in handling the situation. Here's the Trump campaign's approach. COVID-19 is a thing of the past. Trump and his staff members now routinely refer to the pandemic in the past tense. The Trump campaign's storyline is that obviously the pandemic has been hugely disruptive to our economy and to our society, but the president's early efforts, most notably border restrictions back at the beginning of the year, those efforts have been effective in keeping things under control. We can now safely go about our business right now, Trump says, with minimal restrictions on our activities. Trump has encouraged businesses to open, schools to resume in-person instruction, and he snubbed some of the most basic recommendations for infection control coming from his own public health experts. Did you watch the Republican National Convention a couple of weeks ago? The final night of that convention featured a gathering of about 1,500 people on the White House lawn, almost none of them wearing masks, packed together in a confined space with almost no efforts at physical distancing. And to reassure us even further that everything is just fine, the president says that we have a coronavirus vaccine just around the corner, a vaccine made possible by Trump's very own scientific Operation Warp Speed. And once we have that vaccine, everything will return to normal very quickly. We'll all get back to work, we'll get back to school, we'll get back to church, we'll get back to shopping and restaurants, and the economy will start humming right along again. So the core argument of Trump's campaign is that this virus was someone else's fault, China's fault, the World Health Organization's fault, and that President Trump's quick, decisive action has prevented the virus from having lasting impact, and now we can all move on, well before the election. Now, of course, we're all hoping for a safe, effective vaccine to be widely distributed as soon as possible. But Vice President Biden's campaign has a very different tale to tell about everything that's happened with the pandemic. First of all, the Biden campaign isn't going to let us forget that the United States has been more severely affected by this virus than any other country in the world. As of right now, we have about 6 million confirmed cases in the United States and about 190,000 deaths and counting. Even though the pandemic is leveling off in most parts of the United States, the plateau that we've reached is unacceptably high, about 40,000 new cases every day and about 800 new deaths every day. Second, Biden is going to continue to remind us that the economic toll has been staggering. In just 4 of our largest cities in the country, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston, over half of people have either lost their jobs or they've suffered reduced wages because of the economic slowdown. Third, the pandemic has thrown a spotlight on long-standing, horrific racial inequities in our society. A significant majority of the coronavirus cases in many parts of our country have been among Latinos and African Americans. And most importantly, the Biden campaign's core argument about the pandemic is that it didn't have to be this bad, that we've suffered so much and the pain has been drawn out for so long because the Trump administration has downplayed the severity or even the existence of the pandemic. It's flagrantly disregarded fundamental science, especially on mask wearing and on physical distancing. The Trump administration, according to the Biden campaign, has failed to provide vital support for our hospitals and our clinics and our healthcare workers. It's prioritized government intervention on behalf of big business rather than on ordinary workers, needy individuals, and small businesses. Overall, says Biden, the Trump administration has badly mismanaged our national response. Now, in the coming weeks leading up to the election, I expect that the race for a vaccine against COVID-19 is going to be where this campaign rhetoric all comes to a head. It's clear that the president is pushing very hard for some sort of October surprise for approval of a vaccine before Election Day that he can hail as a signature achievement of his administration. He very clearly hopes that this would earn him a significant number of votes. And if it happens, if we get a vaccine quickly, it would be to the president's credit that the federal government has invested an enormous amount of money, an unprecedented amount over a very short period of time in vaccine research and development, over $11 billion so far. But it's very important to remember the dangers that can arise from forcing approval of a vaccine before it's ready. And this is Vice President Biden's argument. It's very important not to politicize the vaccine development process. Pushing for a vaccine to be released before it's been through full clinical trials had the potential to expose people to serious side effects. Pushing for a vaccine before it's proven to be effective could lead people into a false sense of security so that they'll stop wearing masks and washing their hands and practicing safe physical distancing, even though the vaccine isn't strong enough to protect them. And that could reignite the pandemic itself. And all of these things could provide ammunition to the anti-vaxxers. They could increase people's hesitancy to vaccinate themselves and their children, and that could even contribute to renewed outbreaks of things like measles and other easily preventable diseases. Already, because of the way politics has interacted with science across this pandemic, many people have tragically started to lose confidence in some of our core public health institutions, like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention or the Food and Drug Administration. It's good news that many of our key scientists are standing firm. They're making it clear right now that they will not approve a vaccine until we have enough data to be sure that it's safe and effective. The head of the president's Operation Warp Speed initiative has said that he'll resign before he lets that happen. And Dr. Anthony Fauci, I'm sure everyone's familiar by now with Dr. Fauci, he's clearly committed to putting science before politics. But it's hard to escape the fact that this is emerging as one of the clear issues of the presidential election campaign. So as you examine the issues and make your decision about how to vote, make sure you're listening to credible scientific voices and getting accurate information about the pandemic and especially about a vaccine. Thanks very much for watching.